Today for Devotions with Daniela, we are reading White Women Get Ready, How Healing Post-Traumatic Mistress Syndrome Leads to Anti-Racist Change. This is something I'm working on for my practice for the next couple months as I read through it. If you are interested in reading along, you can get copies here. This is Stakes of Resistance. We're still kind of in a witch hunt part of the chapter and where we see it show up today. Stakes of Resistance. These wicked webs have something to teach us about our power, too. In Germany, after the Peasant War resulted in widespread unalivings of a generation of men, older women were the movement's advisors as keepers of the collective memory. The wise woman was both the icon of community guidance and aid at birth. Women often led revolts against food shortages and land enclosures because they were most severely impacted by them. This is something that's showing up in a book I'm reading about the history of normal women in England. And it's like, I'm like, man, these peasants knew how to revolt, these women. And I feel like we don't really know what to do right now. In these European systems built on patriarchy, Roper states, women's political action was virtually de rigueur because it supplied the conclusive demonstration that order was overturned. We wouldn't have been massacred if we hadn't posed a threat. The mythology of the witch was necessary for maintaining the political and economic power hierarchies. Its symbolism, so long-lasting, we have shelves full of witch-themed Disney movies and adorn our babies' girls' bedrooms with the same movies' matching prints. According to Federici, the witch's symbolic necessity was the embodiment of a world of female subjects that capitalism had to destroy. The heretic, the healer, the disobedient wife, the woman who dared to live alone, the Obeah woman who poisoned the master's food and inspired the slaves to revolt. This debasement of women, a necessary condition for the existence of capitalism in all times, was happening precisely because of our collective potency. And by collective, I mean everyone who's down, which begs the question, what is the order that we are willing to overturn? The stories we tell ourselves and each other are a source of our power, and so it's worthwhile to note the exceptions, to plant hope in resistance as we harvest our sorrows. There was a stronghold in Europe where an indigenous identity still thrives, Basque country. Located on the Iberian Peninsula, the Basque people are still engaged in independence movements. This was the only place where men collectively organized to stop the witch hunts. Federici quotes Mark Kurlansky's work when depicting this resistance in detail. When the men of the Saint Jean de Luz cod fleet, one of the largest from Basque country, heard rumors of their wives, mothers, and daughters being stripped, stabbed, and many already unalived. The 1609 cod campaign was ended 2 months early. The fishermen returned, clubs in hand, and liberated a convoy of witches being taken to the burning place. This one popular resistance was all it took to stop the trials. What if peasant men across Europe had stood against the cult of the witch hunt rather than in it? What if they had seen how the persecution of witches was ultimately connected to the persecution of themselves and their communities? What if we understood this about racism today? Healing from mistress syndrome means reclaiming the stake. Death by fire, burning at the stake, was the go-to fatal punishment for witches and heretics alike. This, our literal stake, the apparatus of patriarchal religious and state terrorism, is awaiting our reclamation. What is our stake in ending racism? Rather than a fluffy abstraction about the betterment of humankind, our stake as status quo and passing white ladies is the physical stake on which we were once burned. We do not have to look outside of our own communities, histories, or experiences to know our stake in uprooting the status quo. That stake is also our own. Which brings us full circle to the shoelace metaphor. If European patriarchy is the first knot in your tennis shoe shoelace, proto-capitalist mercantilism, with its bottomless greed for free and cheap, able-bodied labor, And colonization, with its hunger to dominate indigenous peoples and the earth, are the twin bunny ear loops that make up the second knot. And as any caregiver knows, a single knot can result in loose laces. You gotta tie those sneaker laces twice. The double knot of modern capitalism and its co-conspirator, racism, make up the third knot that reinforces these overlapping systems of oppression. As Felicia often pointed out to me, in order to undo a knot, you must first go back through, which is why white feminism has failed us and will continue to fail us. It is impossible to untie a double knot by pulling at its base. In fact, pulling at its base only tightens the knot. From suffragettes to the Women's March, white women have been vocal about ending patriarchy, and we should. Patriarchy is foundational. But in order to undo that knot, as well as all the interconnected knots that keep this arrangement in place, our liberation depends on our ability to untie its more recent mutations. Meaning, we gotta help undo racism first. Oh, and this feels like a good time to remind us that the definition of racism has to do with a system of power in place, not just individual bigotry. Check out this book. I've been very impressed so far. I'm on page 82 now.